Hi everyone, this week we're looking at reclaiming words, and as I'm a bit of a linguistics and language kind of nerd, this subject sort of really fascinates me. I had to make a conscious effort not to sort of go and look up all the etymologies and technical bits of all of the slurs that I wanted to talk about, because I could genuinely chat on about it forever. So I thought I would focus on a few examples. Crip, the N-word, cunt, queer and slut. So I feel like the reclamation of words has a sort of end game, that it loses its derogatory meaning, doesn't forget about it, but doesn't include it in the connotations when it's used, and that it's only used by the group who have reclaimed it, therefore the group who were oppressed by it. Okay, so I think the word crip has done exactly that. For those of you who don't know, crip, it's like a shortened form of the word cripple. And it used to be used a lot as a really derogatory term towards disabled people. Now it's pretty much only used by disabled people, and never in a negative way, but more as a sort of self-label and a kind of a joking around thing. They've taken the word back and it's no longer used to hurt them. I think that's a really good example of word reclamation today. The other words that I've mentioned haven't quite reached that point, I think. The N-word still has so much negative power just due to its horrendous history, and the fact that white people still think it's okay to use that word. It's not, I promise you, ever. But the reclamation process has definitely started. It's definitely underway, and the word is being used sort of in predominantly black sort of communities and black popular culture in a sort of positive way. I think cunt is a really interesting one. I love that word so much. I haven't come across many people who have tried to reclaim it. I remember people telling me in school, like in hushed voices, what the word was and that it was, you know, the worst swear word ever. And I kind of just accepted that and never really questioned why, and then when I did question it, I was like, oh, because it's used to refer to a vagina or a vulva, and because our society is really fucking sexist. The way in which I reclaim it, and I think is a good way to reclaim it, is by sort of refusing to accept it as this like really negative, scary, terrifying word that we must never say, but using it in a somewhat kind of blasé way. I'll use it without negative connotation to refer to vaginas and vulvas, and I think it's so refreshing when other people do that too. Like when you just call a cunt and it doesn't have to have all of the rest of the negative horrendousness around it. Also, it's a useful word. You know, I can't really think of other words or like a neutral word that is used to describe the vulva, the vagina, and just, you know, the whole organ. I think it's useful. I'm going to use it. If I can't find a sort of a more socially acceptable word to say, then cunt it is. Although obviously it's going to have to stick within correct contexts, because I wouldn't say that like in a job interview. I think queer is very nearly there. It's rarely ever used in a sort of derogatory way anymore, and it's also used in a lot of formal and official contexts, for example queer theory. So yay, this is good. And slut, well, there's a whole massive debate around the reclamation of the word slut, and I think it's quite an interesting debate, and it's been mostly brought to light because of the slut walk. I, for one, try to reclaim that word for myself. It has been used sort of in order to try and silence me and oppress me, and I actively reject that by sort of identifying as a slut, I guess. But I'm very aware of and understand the reasons completely why people aren't comfortable with reclaiming it. I've got a lot of friends who aren't comfortable with it. And that's fine. That's another really important point about reclaiming words, is that you can't force people to reclaim a word. You can't shove it down their throats. If they don't want it, they don't want it back. And this applies to any slur, any word that people try to reclaim. You can't force someone to do that. There'll be cultural and generational differences that can really influence whether someone will or will not want to reclaim a word, and we can't ignore that. A final note on reclaiming words. If you have never had the word used against you or the community that you belong to in order to oppress you, then you cannot use that word. It is not yours. I don't care if you don't mean it like that. I don't care what context you're using it in. I don't care if you can't work out how to sing along to your favourite Kanye West song without using that word. It's not yours. Just stop using it. Put it down, walk away, Stop being so desperate to own it. It's not yours, and it's not okay to do that.